Good morning everyone. So today we will be discussing about infiltration galleries. So in the previous slides we have been discussed about what are the ground sources of water, what are the types of ground sources of water, what do you mean by aquifer, what are the types of aquifers, aquitard, aquifers. Okay, this we have been discussed. So we'll give a quick review. Okay, so we have been discussed about aquitard, Acrylic Load, aquifers and aquifer. As all of us know, aquifer is a geological formation that contains the water and it permits a significant quantity of the water to move through it under ordinary field conditions, and it is a porous, permeable, water-bearing geological body of a rock which is generally restricted to materials and capable of yielding an appreciable amount of water. For example, we have gravel, limestone and sand. And next is Acrylic Load. It is a type of a geological formation and it is saturated and may contain large amount of water because of its high porosity, but it cannot transmit the water as it is relatively impermeable. This is known as Acrylic Load. As I have already been discussed with you about the Acrylic Load, that is for example clay, cell, etc. Next is aquifers. It is a relatively impermeable function with no interconnected pores and hence it has neither containing or not transmitting the water. It has low porosity and low permeability. For example, basalt and granite. Next, we have been discussed about the aquitard. Aquitard means it is a saturated geological formation which is poorly permeable and hence it does not yield water freely to oils. It may transmit vertically appreciable quantities of water to or from adjacent aquifers. Okay, it can transmit the quantities of water to the aquifers. For example, clay, lenses or sandy clay, we can say it as. So next we have been discussed about what are the types of aquifers. Okay, there are two types as I have been discussed. First is unconfined aquifers and confined aquifers. Okay, I have shown you here the diagram about here. You can see here that is unconfined aquifers and confined aquifers. Okay, unconfined aquifers also known as non-artesian aquifers. And aquifer having water table is called as unconfined aquifer, and in this aquifer the water table serves as the upper surface of the zone of saturation, while it has a less permeable and it is essentially impermeable layer. And aquifer is also known as a free aquifer or water table aquifer. Okay, so next we have been discussed about that is confined aquifers. It can also say as artesian aquifers. A confined aquifer is a completely saturated aquifer having upper and lower boundaries are impervious layers. A confined aquifer is separated from the atmosphere by a relatively impermeable confining rock which can be occurred as an aquifers, Acrylic Load and aquitard. The wells penetrating such an aquifer are known as artesian and flowing wells. In such wells, the water level will rise above the bottom of the confining bed, and a region supplying the water to the confined aquifer is known as recharge area. We can also say it as recharge area, and it may also enter, the water may also enter by leakage through a confining bed. So today we will be discussing about that is infiltration galleries. Okay, in the infiltration, here I have been shown you the diagram about the infiltration galleries. You can see here the images of infiltration galleries. Okay, and in the infiltration galleries, the groundwater travels towards the lakes, rivers, streams, and this water which is traveling can be intercepted by digging a trench or by constructing a tunnel with holes on sides at the right angle to the direction of flow of underground water. And this underground tunnel is used for the tapping underground water near rivers, lakes and the streams are known as infiltration galleries. So we can say that groundwater travels towards the lakes, rivers, streams, it travels towards the lakes, and this water which has been traveling, it may be intercepted or it can be intercepted by digging a trench. Trench means we can dig a hole, we can dig a hole, or by constructing a tunnel with holes on the sides at the right angles. Okay, we can trench a hole, we can dig a hole on the sides at the right angle to the direction of the flow of underground water. And this underground tunnel used for the tapping underground water. This you can see, you have been a hole, this has been made And the underground tunnel used for the tapping underground water near river, lakes or streams, it has been constructed, which is known as infiltration galleries. Okay. And underground water may be allowed to enter these infiltration galleries from both sides or one side and as desired. So the underground water may be allowed to enter the infiltration galleries. So it can enter the infiltration galleries from both the sides, or it can be one side. If we send the water with the sand, clay or mud, so the sand, clay or mud, it will separate and the water would get inside it in the infiltration gallery. Okay. So we can say that the underground water may be allowed to enter these infiltration galleries from both the sides. Also, we can also say that the infiltration galleries may be constructed with the masonry or the concrete, okay, with the weep holes of, you can say 5 into, you can see the weep holes have been shown here in the diagram. Infiltration galleries, it can be constructed with the masonry or the concrete with the weep holes of 5 cm into 10 cm. Okay. And in the infiltration galleries are surrounded on the sides and the top with a gravel. You can see here the infiltration galleries are surrounded with a top and the sides with a gravel or a pebble stones to increase the intake capacity. Okay, we can see here the stones have been surrounded here, or the pebble stones have been surrounded to increase the intake capacity. Okay, so this is known as the infiltration galleries. So next we will be discussing about, that is, infiltration wells. Infiltration wells is defined as the flow of water from the above ground into subsurface. Infiltration wells are also called as interception wells, and they are the structures that allow the surface runoff to drain through underground piping. They do not have direct water inlet at ground level. Infiltration well is also known as sunk well, and they are generally constructed of masonry with open joints. So we can say that infiltration is defined as the flow of water from above the ground into subsurface. From above the ground into subsurface, the flow of water is known as infiltration. And in the infiltration wells are called as also interception wells, and it is also called as sunk well. And these are the structures, or they are the structures that allow the surface runoff to drain through underground piping. It can also drain the water through underground piping, and they do not have direct water inlet at ground level. And they are generally, these wells are generally constructed of masonry with open joints. Okay. So next we will be discussing about, that is, springs. Sometimes the groundwater reappears at the ground surface in the form of a springs. We can say that sometimes you can see when the rain occurs, the groundwater reappears at the ground surface in the form of a springs. Okay. Springs generally can supply small quantity of water, hence this cannot be used as a source of water to the big towns. As all of us know, springs cannot supply more amount of water, and it may supply the small quantity of water. So if it supplies the small quantity of water, so it can be supplied to the small towns. Okay, it cannot be supplied to the big towns. So good developed springs can be used as water supply sources for some hill towns. Springs are formed under following circumstances: when the surface of the earth drops sharply below the normal groundwater table, and when, due to an obstruction, groundwater is collected in the form of a reservoir and forces the water to overflow at the surface. Third is when the fissure is an impervious stratum, allows artesian water to flow in the form of a springs. So we can say that good developed springs can be used as water sources for hill towns, and there are under springs are formed under following circumstances. First is when the surface of the earth drops sharply below the groundwater table. Okay. And second is when, due to an obstruction, groundwater is collected in the form of a reservoir or forces the water to overflow at the surface. And third is when the fissure is an impervious stratum, allows the artesian water to flow in the form of a springs. Okay. So these are the springs are formed under following circumstances. And you can see here the diagram. I have shown you the springs diagram. You can see here the water has been coming from the springs. Okay. And here you can see the diagram. Okay, these are the springs where the water is coming. Okay, so next we will be dealing with wells in the next slide. Thank you.